In the shadows of Seattle's rain-drenched streets, the most feared crime lord in the Pacific Northwest is falling apart. Not from bullets or betrayal, but from the desperate cries of a dying infant he cannot save. Dominic Vale has crushed empires, eliminated rivals without mercy, and built an underworld kingdom on fear itself. But now, as his newborn son wastes away despite every doctor's effort, the king discovers a terrifying truth. Absolute power means nothing when you're powerless to save the one life that matters. Stay with us until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so we can see how far this story reaches. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning Seattle's streets into rivers of reflected neon and washing away any pretense that this city belonged to anyone but the shadows. In the penthouse suite of the obsidian tower that dominated the waterfront, Dominic Vale stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, watching his empire dissolve in the downpour. Behind him, another cry split the silence. Thin, desperate, fading. His son was dying. Dominic's reflection in the glass showed a man who'd forgotten how to feel anything but control. 42 years old, carved from violence and discipline, with steel-gray eyes that had watched men beg and never blinked. His tailored black suit fit like armor. His presence filled rooms before he entered them. When Dominic Vale spoke, the underworld listened. When he moved, empires shifted. But the baby's cry made him feel like nothing. "Mr. Vale?" The voice behind him belonged to Marcus Chen, his head of security for 15 years. Marcus was one of 3 people alive who could speak to Dominic without permission. "Dr. Richardson is here." Again. Dominic didn't turn. "And?" "Same answer as the last 4 specialists. The baby won't take formula. Won't take anything they've tried. He's losing weight. Another 48 hours, maybe less." "Get out." Marcus hesitated. In 15 years, he'd seen Dominic execute traitors, orchestrate territorial wars, and dismantle entire criminal organizations with surgical precision. He'd never seen him afraid. "Dom, I said get out." The words were quiet. That made them more dangerous. The door closed with a whisper. Dominic remained at the window, listening to his son's weakening cries from the nursery down the hall. Medical equipment hummed and beeped, $1 million worth of technology that couldn't solve a problem older than civilization itself. An infant who wouldn't eat. His phone buzzed. Dominic ignored it. It buzzed again. On the 3rd time, he answered without checking the caller. "Speak." "Dominic." The voice was smooth, cultured, wrapped in false sympathy. "Victor Constantine, head of the Russian syndicate that controlled everything from Vancouver to Portland, except Seattle." Dominic had made sure of that. "I heard about your difficulty. Such a tragedy. If there's anything, you heard wrong. The whole underworld's heard, my friend. 3 weeks of crying that never stops, doctors coming and going at all hours. It's hard to keep secrets when you're desperate." Dominic's jaw tightened. The phone creaked in his grip. "Careful, Victor. I'm only offering assistance. Perhaps Russian doctors where American ones have failed? I could arrange. Touch my family, send anyone near my property, even think too hard in my direction, and I'll burn everything you've built to ash. We clear?" A pause. Then soft laughter. "Crystal. But Dominic, desperate men make mistakes. And in our world, mistakes are expensive." The line went dead. Dominic threw the phone across the room. It shattered against marble, pieces skittering into darkness. Victor was right about one thing. Desperation was showing. In 3 weeks, Dominic had gone from untouchable to vulnerable. Word was spreading. Rivals were watching. The smell of blood in the water. His son cried again, the sound pulling at something in Dominic's chest he'd thought dead for decades. He'd never wanted children, never wanted weakness. But Elena? He cut the thought short. Elena was gone. Cancer had taken her 8 months ago, 3 weeks before she was due to give birth. The emergency C-section had saved the baby, but left Dominic with a question he'd never had to answer before. What do you do when you can't control something? When power and money and fear mean nothing against biology? The nursery door opened. Sofia Martinez emerged, the 3rd specialist this week. She looked exhausted, her gray hair escaping its bun, her expression the careful neutrality of someone delivering bad news to dangerous men. "Mr. Vale, just tell me." Sophia's professional mask cracked slightly. He's not going to make it through the night, not at this rate. I'm sorry. We've tried everything. Specialized formulas, IV nutrients, feeding tubes. His body rejects it all. It's like he's waiting for something we can't give him. There has to be something. There isn't, not medically. I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never seen... She stopped, seeming to reconsider her words. Sometimes babies need what medicine can't provide. Your wife, if she were here, she's not. I know. I'm sorry. But what he needs... Sophia trailed off, shaking her head. I'll stay through the night, just in case. She retreated to the nursery, leaving Dominic alone with the sound of rain and dying hopes. He poured 3 fingers of scotch he didn't taste and returned to the window. Below, the city pulsed with life. He controlled through fear and strategy. Territory disputes, shipment routes, protection rackets, political leverage. All of it mapped in his mind like a chessboard. But none of it mattered if he couldn't save one fragile life. His empire was built on the principle that everything had a price. Everyone had a weakness. Every problem had a solution if you were willing to pay in blood or money or both. But what did you pay when the thing you needed didn't exist? The phone, the backup phone, rang. Marcus. What? There's someone at the service entrance, says she's here for the housekeeper position. We're not hiring. I know, but she's insistent. Says she heard you needed help, and I don't care what she heard. Send her away. Dom, she's been standing in the rain for 2 hours. Just let me bring her up. Mrs. Chen could use the help, and fine. Whatever. Handle it. Dominic ended the call and drained the scotch. Somewhere in the building, a desperate woman was about to discover that working for Dominic Vale meant entering a world where mistakes weren't forgiven and secrets were currencies more valuable than gold. She'd learn. Or she'd leave. Everyone did eventually. Lena Hart stood in the rain and tried not to shake. 2 hours she'd been waiting, soaked through, watching expensive cars come and go from the underground garage. 2 hours of security cameras tracking her every movement while guards with earpieces and concealed weapons evaluated whether she was a threat. She wasn't. She was just desperate. The building loomed above her, black glass and steel cutting into the stormy sky like a blade. This was the heart of Dominic Vale's empire. Everyone in Seattle knew it, even if they pretended not to. The police didn't come here. Reporters didn't ask questions. People who crossed the threshold either worked for Vale or would regret the visit. Lena needed the work. The service entrance finally opened. A woman in her 60s emerged, Asian, elegant despite the late hour. Her dark eyes assessed Lena with the precision of someone who'd survived a long time in a dangerous world. I'm Jennifer Chen, head of household. You've been waiting. Yes, ma'am. I'm Lena Hart. I heard you might need... We're not hiring. Please. The word came out more desperate than Lena intended. I'm a hard worker. I can clean, cook, organize, whatever you need. I don't cause trouble. I don't ask questions. I just need... Everyone needs something, dear. That doesn't mean I can help. Jennifer started to close the door. Lena's hand shot out, stopping it. The nearest guard tensed, hand moving toward his weapon. Jennifer raised one finger, wait, and the guard froze. I lost my daughter 4 months ago. Lena's voice cracked. She'd sworn she wouldn't do this, wouldn't use grief as currency, but desperation made liars of everyone. I lost my home 2 months ago. Everything I had is gone. I'll work for minimum wage, sleep in a closet, whatever it takes. I just need a chance. Jennifer's expression softened fractionally. I'm sorry for your loss, truly, but this isn't... A cry split the air, thin, desperate, fading. Lena's whole body went rigid. She knew that sound, had heard it in hospitals, in waiting rooms, in the endless dark nights after. A baby in distress, a baby starving. How old? The question came out before she could stop it. Jennifer's face became a mask. That's not your concern? 3 weeks? A month? Lena's heart was pounding. That cry, I know that cry. That's not colic. That's not gas. That baby's starving. Miss Hart, let me help. Lena stepped forward, rain streaming down her face. Please, just let me try. You need to leave. Now. I lost my daughter because I couldn't save her. If there's a baby in there dying and I walk away, Lena's voice broke. I can't do that again. I can't just walk away when maybe I could. What are you suggesting? The question came from behind Jennifer. A man's voice, cold and precise, wrapped in authority that made the guard straighten unconsciously. Dominic Vale stepped into the light. Lena had seen pictures. Everyone had. Crime lord, they whispered. Murderer. King of Seattle's underworld. The photos hadn't captured the reality of him. 6'3" of controlled violence, dressed in black despite the late hour, with eyes that looked through you instead of at you. He studied her like she was a problem to solve or eliminate. I said, "What are you suggesting, Miss Hart?" Lena's survival instinct screamed at her to run. Her grief held her in place. That baby's cry, I recognize it. My daughter, she swallowed hard. My daughter was born premature. Spent 2 months in NICU. I know what a starving baby sounds like, and I know. She stopped. The words too impossible to say to a stranger. To this stranger. You know what? Dominic's voice dropped lower, dangerous. I know what they need when nothing else works. The rain fell harder. Somewhere above, the baby's cry grew weaker. Dominic stared at her for a long moment. Then, Jennifer, bring her inside. Sir, now. Jennifer's jaw tightened, but she stepped aside. Lena crossed the threshold, leaving puddles of rainwater on marble floors that probably cost more than her entire life before. The entrance hall was stark elegance. Black and white marble, modern art that meant nothing to Lena, recessed lighting that made shadows seem deeper, guards at every corner, cameras tracking movement. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Dominic led her to an elevator with a fingerprint scanner. They rode up in silence, Jennifer beside them radiating disapproval, while Lena tried to understand what she'd just done. Walked into a crime lord's home, offered something impossible, probably just ensured her own death. The baby's cry grew louder as they ascended. The elevator opened to a private floor, more marble, more shadows, more silence except for that desperate sound. Dominic moved through the space with the efficiency of a predator in familiar territory. He stopped at a door, hand on the handle. If you're wasting my time, I'm not. If you hurt him in any way, I won't. Dominic's eyes narrowed. You sound certain. I am. Why? Lena met his gaze. Because I already lost my child. I won't let anyone else lose theirs if I can help it. Something flickered across Dominic's face, too fast to read, too complex to name. He opened the door. The nursery was a contrast to the rest of the building. Soft colors, gentle lighting, expensive equipment humming quietly. In the center, surrounded by monitors and medical devices, a bassinet held a tiny form wrapped in blue. The baby was beautiful and dying. Lena could see it immediately. The sunken cheeks, the listless movements, the cry that should have been stronger. 3 weeks old, maybe 4. Dark hair, olive skin, long lashes against pale cheeks, a tiny fist waving weakly at nothing. Her daughter's face flashed in her memory. Different features, same desperation. Doctor. Sophia Martinez stood from her chair, startled. Mr. Vale, someone who thinks she can help. Dominic's voice was flat. You have 5 minutes to convince me you're not insane. Lena approached the bassinet slowly. The baby's eyes found hers, gray like his father's, already carrying too much awareness for something so small. She'd seen that look before. Babies who knew they were losing the fight. What have you tried? She asked Sophia. Everything. Specialized formulas, feeding tubes, IV nutrients. Has he taken anything at all? Nothing. Not since. Sophia glanced at Dominic. Not since his mother passed. Lena's throat tightened. She knew this story. Different details, same tragedy. He's looking for her, Lena whispered. That's why he won't eat. He's waiting for what he knows he needs. That's not medically, Sophia started. I don't care about medically. Lena looked at Dominic. I know what he needs, but you're not going to like it. Tell me. Me. The word hung in the air. Sophia's eyes widened. Jennifer made a small sound of protest. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture, a coiling, like a snake deciding whether to strike. Explain. Lena's hands trembled. After I lost my daughter, my milk still came in. For weeks. The hospital said it would stop eventually, but it didn't. 4 months later, I'm still... She couldn't finish. The admission felt too raw, too intimate. He needs what only a mother can give. I can be that. Temporarily. Until he's strong enough for formula. You're suggesting I let a stranger. I'm suggesting you let me save your son's life. The silence stretched. The baby's cry grew weaker. Dominic turned to Sophia. Is this possible? Sophia looked torn between medical ethics and reality. Theoretically, yes. Wet nurses used to be common. But in terms of safety, diseases, legal implications, I'm clean, Lena interrupted. I can provide medical records. I'll sign anything. I just want to help. Why? Dominic's question cut like glass. You don't know me. Don't know him. Why risk yourself for a stranger's child? Lena looked at the dying baby, then at the father who couldn't save him despite all his power. Because I couldn't save mine, but maybe I can save yours. Dominic stared at her. Lena held his gaze, even though every instinct screamed to look away. She'd come here desperate for work, for purpose, for anything to fill the void. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected to find another dying child and a chance at redemption she'd never asked for. Jennifer, Dominic said quietly, get her medical records verified. Full background check. Everything. Sir, this is now. Jennifer left, radiating disapproval. Sophia looked uncertain but didn't argue. Dominic approached the bassinet, looking down at his son with an expression Lena couldn't read. If you're lying, he'd said softly, if this is some scheme, some angle, it's not. I'll know. And what I do to people who threaten my family. He looked up at her. You can't imagine. I'm not asking you to trust me, Lena said. I'm asking you to trust that I meant what I said. I lost my child. I won't let yours die if I can prevent it. The baby's cry weakened further. Time was running out. Dominic made a decision. Lena could see it happen, the moment when desperation outweighed every protocol and instinct. If Sophia clears you medically, he said, you'll do this. Here. Now. Under observation. Yes. You'll live in this building, under guard, under surveillance, until he's strong enough to transition to formula. I understand. You'll sign documents that protect me legally from any claims. I'll sign anything. Dominic studied her for another long moment. Then he turned to Sophia. Check her. Fast. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur. Sophia drew blood, checked vitals, asked questions about Lena's medical history, while guards verified her records with frightening efficiency. Jennifer returned with a tablet full of background information, Lena's life reduced to data points and credit scores. She's clean, Jennifer admitted reluctantly. No criminal record, no debts except medical bills from her daughter's hospitalization, no connections to any rival organizations. She's healthy, Sophia added, equally reluctant. Recent blood work shows no diseases, no drugs, no alcohol. She's actually... Sophia paused. She's actually ideal for this. If we're doing this. Dominic looked at Lena. Last chance to walk away. Lena looked at the baby, whose cries had almost stopped. I'm not walking away. Then do it. Sophia brought a chair. Lena sat, heart pounding, while the doctor lifted the tiny, fragile form from the bassinet. The baby barely responded, conserving what little energy remained. I'll show you how to position, Sophia started. I know how. Lena's voice was soft. I remember. She took the baby, Dominic's son, this child she didn't know, and cradled him against her chest. He was so light, too light. Her daughter had felt like this near the end. Please, she thought, please let this work. She arranged herself, hands shaking, muscle memory from months ago returning despite the grief. The baby stirred against her, instinct older than civilization taking over. His tiny mouth searched, found what it needed, and latched. The room went silent except for quiet, desperate suckling. Lena's eyes burned. Her daughter's face flashed in her memory. This was how it should have been. This moment of connection and nourishment, If only there'd been more time. If only the cancer hadn't... The baby made a small sound of contentment. Dominic made a sound like he'd been punched. "He's feeding," Sophia whispered, wonder in her voice. "He's actually feeding." Lena looked down at the tiny face, eyes closed in concentration, little hands gripping her shirt. He was feeding with the desperation of starvation finally answered. Already color was returning to his cheeks. Already strength was flowing back into fragile limbs. "How long?" Dominic's voice was hoarse. "As long as he needs," Lena said quietly. "Until he's satisfied." She didn't look at Dominic, didn't look at Sophia or Jennifer or the guards watching from the doorway. She looked at the baby, this child who'd been dying minutes ago and was now fighting his way back to life with every tiny swallow. This was what her daughter never got. This was the miracle that hadn't come in time. But it was coming now for this child, and Lena would take that, would hold it close and let it mean something. The baby fed for 20 minutes. Then, finally satisfied, he drifted into the first peaceful sleep he'd had since his mother died. Lena held him longer, unwilling to break the connection, tears streaming silently down her face. "Miss Hart." Dominic's voice was different now, softer, almost human. "Give him to Sophia." Lena reluctantly released the baby. Sophia placed him in the bassinet, checking monitors with shaking hands. "His vitals are stabilizing," she breathed. "Heart rate normalizing, color improving. This is..." She looked at Dominic. "This is exactly what he needed." Dominic stood over the bassinet, watching his son sleep. When he looked at Lena, something fundamental had shifted in his expression. "You saved his life." "I did what anyone..." "No." The word was absolute. "You did what no one else could. You gave me my son back." Lena wiped her eyes, trying to steady herself. "What happens now?" "Now?" Dominic's smile was cold and promising. "Now you become the most protected person in Seattle, because anyone who wants to hurt me will come for you first." The words should have been terrifying. Instead, Lena felt something settle in her chest. Purpose, maybe. Direction. A reason to wake up that wasn't just survival. "I can live with that," she said quietly. "Good." Dominic turned to Jennifer. "Prepare the guest suite, full security. She doesn't leave this floor without escort." "Yes, sir." "Sophia, I want feeding schedules, nutritional monitoring, everything documented." "Of course." Dominic looked back at Lena. "You'll be compensated beyond any salary. You'll have anything you need, but understand this. You belong to my son now, to this family. Your life is no longer your own." Most people would have been terrified. Lena just felt tired and grateful and desperately sad all at once. "I understand." "Do you?" Dominic stepped closer. "Because once you're part of this world, there's no leaving it. You'll see things, hear things, know things that make you dangerous to people who'd rather you stayed silent. The only reason you'll stay alive is because you're necessary. You understand what I'm saying?" Lena met his eyes. "You're saying you'll kill me if I become a liability. I'm saying I'll protect you as long as you protect him. And if you ever betray that trust, I won't. You seem certain." "I am." Lena's voice steadied. "I don't have anything left to betray you for. My daughter's gone. My old life's gone. All I have now is this, a chance to keep someone else's child alive. That's enough." Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. "Jennifer will show you to your room. Get some rest. He'll need to feed again in a few hours." Lena stood on shaking legs. As she followed Jennifer to the door, she glanced back at the nursery. Dominic stood over his son's bassinet, one hand resting gently on the sleeping baby's chest. The crime lord, the killer, the king of Seattle's underworld, reduced to a father watching his child breathe. "Miss Hart," he said without turning. "Thank you." The words were quiet, almost lost in the hum of medical equipment, but Lena heard them, heard the weight behind them. "You're welcome," she whispered, and walked into her new life, one where she was no longer just Lena Hart, grieving mother trying to survive. Now she was something far more complicated, the only thing standing between a crime lord's heir and death. The only question was how long she'd survive in that role. Outside, the rain finally stopped, and dawn broke over Seattle in shades of gray and gold. The guest suite was larger than Lena's entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, now washed clean by the storm. Modern furniture in shades of cream and gray, a bathroom with marble everything, a bed that looked like it had never been slept in. Jennifer stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "There are clothes in the closet. Your size, near as we could guess. Toiletries in the bathroom. If you need anything else, press 9 on the phone." "Thank you." Jennifer didn't leave. Her dark eyes assessed Lena with the same precision as before, but now there was something else there. Concern, maybe. Or warning. "That baby downstairs," Jennifer said quietly. "He's not just Dominic Vale's son. He's the heir to an empire built on blood and fear. People will come for him. They'll use any weakness they can find." "I'm not a weakness. You're the only thing keeping him alive. That makes you the biggest weakness Dominic's had in 20 years. Jennifer stepped closer. "I've worked for him since he was nobody. Watched him build this empire from nothing. He's not a good man, Lena. He's killed people. Destroyed lives. Made decisions that would keep you awake at night if you knew about them." "Then why do you stay?" "Because he's loyal to the people who matter to him. And because in this world you're either protected by someone like Dominic Vale or you're prey for everyone else." Jennifer's expression softened fractionally. "That baby's mother, Elena, she was good. Really good. Tried to bring light to Dominic's darkness. I watched her die in this building, watched him break in ways he'll never admit. That child is all he has left of her." "I'll protect him," Lena said. "I promise." "See that you do. Because if anything happens to that baby, Dominic won't just kill you. He'll erase you, like you never existed." Jennifer left, closing the door with a whisper. Lena stood in the silent suite, exhaustion finally catching up with her. She should shower, change clothes, sleep. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out at the city she'd called home for 32 years. Somewhere down there was the hospital where her daughter had died, the apartment she'd lost, the life that had crumbled like sand between her fingers. She'd come here desperate and empty. Now she was dangerous and necessary. Lena didn't know which was worse. She finally showered, letting hot water wash away rain and grief and the surreal reality of the last few hours. The clothes in the closet fit perfectly. How had they known her size so quickly? But then, this was Dominic Vale's world. He probably had files on everyone who came within 100 feet of his building. She lay down on the bed, certain she wouldn't sleep. She was unconscious in minutes. 3 hours later, her phone rang. Not her phone. A new phone on the nightstand she hadn't noticed before. She answered groggily. "He's crying." Dominic's voice, tight with controlled panic. "Sophia says he needs to feed." Lena was moving before she was fully awake. "I'm coming." A guard waited outside her door, massive, silent, expression neutral. He escorted her to the elevator without a word. They rode up in silence. When the doors opened, she could hear the baby's cries. The nursery was different in daylight, softer somehow, despite the medical equipment. Dominic stood by the window, still dressed in black, looking like he hadn't slept. Sophia monitored the baby's vitals with professional concern. "His vitals are dropping again," Sophia said. "He needs—" "I know." Lena took the baby from the bassinet, settling into the chair she'd used before. The tiny form was warmer now, stronger, but still so fragile. He latched immediately, desperate and trusting. Dominic watched from across the room, motionless. "You should rest," Lena said quietly. "I can stay with him." "No." "You've been awake for how long?" "That's not your concern." Lena looked at him, really looked. Deep beneath the control and power, she saw exhaustion, fear, the raw edges of a man barely holding together. "He's safe," she said. "I promise. Whatever else happens, I'll keep him safe." Something flickered in Dominic's eyes. "You can't promise that." "I can. I will." "You don't know what you're promising. You don't know what's out there waiting for any sign of weakness." "Then tell me." Dominic was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he sat. Not close, maintaining distance, but present in a way he hadn't been before. There are four major crime families in the Pacific Northwest, he said quietly. Russian, Chinese, Italian, and mine. We maintain territory through mutual understanding and strategic violence. The Russians, the Constantines, have been testing our borders for 6 months. Small provocations. Shipment interruptions. Nothing I couldn't handle. Until your son got sick. Until my son got sick. Dominic's jaw tightened. Victor Constantine called me, offered help, which means he knows, which means everyone knows. What does that mean? It means they're circling, waiting to see if I'm distracted, weak, vulnerable. He looked at the baby. He's 3 weeks old and already a target. Lena's arms tightened protectively around the infant. They'd hurt a baby? They'd do worse than hurt him. They'd take him, use him as leverage, force me to give up territory, resources, control. Dominic's voice went cold. They'd turn him into a weapon against me. You won't let that happen. No, I won't. He met her eyes. Which is why you're never leaving this building without a security team. Why cameras will track your every movement. Why you'll sleep, eat, breathe under surveillance until this is over. When will it be over? When he's strong enough to survive without you. When he can take formula and I can remove the vulnerability you represent. The words should have stung. Instead, Lena felt oddly relieved. She'd never wanted to be important. Important meant exposed, noticeable. All she'd ever wanted was to keep her daughter alive, and when that failed, to disappear. But here, now, with this child depending on her, maybe this was enough. Maybe this was all she could ask for. The baby finished feeding and drifted back to sleep. Lena held him longer than necessary, memorizing the weight of him, the tiny sounds he made. What's his name? She asked. Dominic hesitated. Christopher, after my father. Christopher. Lena looked down at the sleeping infant. It's a good name. Elena chose it before... He stopped. Before. They sat in silence, dawn light streaming through the windows, while the baby slept and the city woke below them. Lena wanted to ask about Elena, about how Dominic had ended up in this life, about whether he'd ever wanted anything different, but some questions were too dangerous, and she was smart enough to know it. You should rest, Dominic said finally. He'll need to feed again in 3 hours. What about you? I have work. When did you last sleep? That's not your concern, Lena finished. Right, except if you collapse from exhaustion, who's going to protect us? Dominic's expression darkened. Careful. I'm just saying what's obvious. You can't run an empire on no sleep. I've done it before. When you had fewer targets painted on your family. That landed. Dominic stood abruptly, anger flickering across his face. But beneath the anger was something else, acknowledgement. She was right, and he knew it. 3 hours, he said. Then someone will come get you. He left without another word. Sophia remained, checking Christopher's vitals with practiced efficiency. You're brave, Sophia said quietly. Or stupid. I haven't decided which. Does it matter? Probably not. Either way, you're in the center of something dangerous. Sophia made notes on her tablet. His vitals are excellent. Whatever you're providing, it's exactly what he needed. A few more days of this and we might be able to start introducing formula slowly. A few days? Maybe a week. Depends on how he responds. Sophia looked at Lena with something like sympathy. You really did lose a daughter? 4 months ago. She was 2 months premature, spent her whole life in the hospital. I'm sorry. So am I. Is that why you're doing this? Trying to save what you couldn't save before? Lena looked at Christopher, so peaceful in sleep. Maybe. Or maybe I just couldn't walk away from another dying baby. Well, you didn't. He's alive because of you. Sophia closed her tablet. Get some rest. This is going to be harder than you think. Lena returned to her suite, escorted by the same silent guard. She tried to sleep, but couldn't. Her mind raced with everything that had happened, everything Dominic had said. 4 crime families. Territory wars, a baby as leverage. She'd walked into something so far over her head she couldn't see the surface anymore. 3 hours later, Jennifer knocked on her door. He's crying. It became a rhythm. Every 3 hours, Christopher needed to feed. Every 3 hours, Lena went to the nursery and provided what only she could give. Between feedings, she tried to rest, tried to process, tried not to think about how temporary this all was. On the second day, Marcus brought her breakfast personally. The head of security was lean and efficient, with careful eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Vale wants you to know the background checks are complete," Marcus said, setting a tray on the table. "You're exactly who you say you are. No hidden agendas. No connections to rival organizations." "I could have told you that." "We had to verify. In this business, trust costs lives." "What business is that exactly?" Marcus smiled slightly. "The business of staying alive in a world that wants you dead. Eat. You need your strength." The food was excellent. Fresh fruit, eggs Benedict, coffee that tasted like it cost more than Lena used to make in a day. She ate mechanically, fueling a body that felt disconnected from her mind. On the third day, Christopher stayed awake longer after feeding. His gray eyes tracked movement, curious and aware. Lena talked to him quietly, telling him about the rain outside, the city below, the life he'd have when he was stronger. Dominic listened from the doorway, silent and watchful. "He looks better," Dominic said finally. "He's getting stronger every day." "Thanks to you." Lena looked up at him. "Thanks to both of us. You gave me a chance when you had no reason to trust me." "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice. You chose to risk letting a stranger near your son. That takes trust, whether you want to admit it or not." Dominic stepped into the room. In daylight, Lena could see the lines of exhaustion on his face, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. "I don't trust easily," he said. "I noticed. People in my world, they lie. They scheme. Everyone wants something. What do you think I want?" "I don't know. That's what bothers me." Dominic sat across from her. "Most people want money, power, protection. You haven't asked for anything." "I have everything I need." "Do you?" Lena looked at Christopher, fighting sleep in her arms. "I have a purpose. That's more than I had a week ago." "Purpose." Dominic's voice was strange. Elena used to say that. She said everyone needs purpose, or they're just surviving. She sounds wise. She was. Too wise for someone like me. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "She knew what I was when we met, knew the violence, the empire, the blood. She thought she could change me." "Could she?" "No. But she changed how I saw myself, made me want to be—" He stopped. "It doesn't matter now." "It matters to him," Lena said, nodding to Christopher. "He'll grow up with her memory because you'll tell him about her, about how she loved him before he was born, how she chose his name, how she tried to make the world softer." Dominic's expression cracked slightly. "I don't know how to do this without her." "You're doing it. Every time you check on him, every time you make decisions to keep him safe. You're being his father. A father who runs a criminal empire. A father who loves his son enough to let a stranger save his life." They sat in silence while Christopher finally surrendered to sleep. Lena placed him in the bassinet, watching his tiny chest rise and fall with new strength. "Miss Hart," Dominic said quietly. "Lena, I need you to understand something." She turned to face him. "In 4 days, there's a charity gala. High society, politicians, business leaders. I have to attend. It's expected." "Okay. I'm bringing Christopher." Lena's stomach dropped. "That's not safe." "It's necessary. Word spread that he was sick. People are talking. Rivals are watching. I need to show them he's healthy, strong, not a weakness they can exploit." "You're going to parade a 3-week-old baby in front of your enemies?" "I'm going to show the world that Dominic Vale's heir is thriving." His voice hardened. "And you're coming with us." "What? No, I can't. You're his wet nurse, his lifeline. If he needs to feed, you need to be there." "Dominic, I can't go to some high society gala. I don't have clothes for that. I don't know how to act in that world. You'll be provided everything you need. Clothes, jewelry, security. All you have to do is stay close to Christopher and be ready if he needs you." "People will ask questions. Let them ask. The official story is you're a private nurse, nothing more. Lena's heart raced. This is a terrible idea. It's the only idea. If I show weakness, if I hide him, it's blood in the water. I have to prove he's protected, safe, untouchable. By bringing him to a room full of people who want you dead? By showing them exactly what happens to anyone who threatens my family. Dominic's eyes went cold. You don't know me well enough yet to understand this, but I'll make it clear. I would burn this city to ash before I let anyone hurt my son. The gala is me drawing a line, daring them to cross it. And if they do, then they learn why people fear my name. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but she saw the determination in Dominic's face and knew it was pointless. He'd made his decision. When is it? She asked quietly. Saturday night. That gives us 4 days to prepare. Prepare for what? For war disguised as a party. The next 4 days passed in a blur of feeding schedules and security briefings. Marcus explained exit routes, safe rooms, protocols if something went wrong. Jennifer brought dress options, elegant gowns that cost more than Lena's car had. Sophia monitored Christopher's progress with increasing optimism. And Dominic watched it all with the focus of a general planning a campaign. On Friday afternoon, a woman arrived at the penthouse, tall, elegant, with silver hair and sharp eyes. She introduced herself as Victoria Chen, Jennifer's sister and Dominic's event coordinator for 15 years. Let me see you, Victoria said, circling Lena like a predator evaluating prey. I'm not really... Stand up straight, shoulders back. You're going to be photographed tomorrow night. Every camera in that room will find you because you'll be near Christopher. And everyone wants a look at Dominic Vale's heir. I'm just the nurse. You're the woman keeping his son alive. That makes you news. Victoria pulled out a tablet, scrolling through images. The midnight blue, I think. Conservative enough to avoid scandal. Elegant enough to blend with the crowd. Hair up? Minimal jewelry. We want you noticed, but not memorable. That's a contradiction. Welcome to Dominic's world. Everything's a contradiction. Victoria smiled slightly. You'll do fine. Just stay close to the baby, don't answer questions, and let security handle everything else. What if something goes wrong? Then Marcus earns his salary. Victoria's smile faded. But nothing will go wrong. Dominic's too careful for that. That evening, Lena fed Christopher in the nursery while Dominic reviewed security footage with Marcus. She could hear them through the open door, planning angles and contingencies and backup protocols. The Russians will be there, Marcus said. Victor Constantine confirmed. I expected that. The Chinese are sending representation. Joe himself. Also expected. The Italians will cause problems. They always do. Dominic's voice went cold. Double security on the exits. Triple it on Christopher's suite. If anyone gets within 10 feet of him who shouldn't be there, I want to know before they take their next breath. Already done. Christopher finished feeding and looked up at Lena with those knowing gray eyes. She wondered what he'd remember of this time. If he'd know that a grieving stranger had kept him alive when the world wanted him dead. You're thinking too much, Dominic said from the doorway. Marcus had left. They were alone with the baby. I'm thinking about tomorrow. Don't. Just stay close to him. That's all you need to do. What if... There are no what ifs. Dominic crossed to the bassinet, looking down at his sleeping son. Tomorrow night, I show the world my family. I show them Christopher is strong, protected, mine, and anyone who thinks they can use him against me learns exactly how wrong they are. You make it sound like a declaration of war. It is. Dominic looked at her. But you'll be safe. I promise you that. I don't need promises. You're getting one anyway. Nothing happens to you or Christopher while you're under my protection. Nothing. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this crime lord who'd shown her nothing but cold calculation actually cared about her safety, but trust was expensive, and she'd learned that lesson the hard way. Saturday arrived with cloudless skies and cold winds. Lena spent the morning with Christopher, feeding him, holding him, memorizing the weight of him in case everything went wrong. At 4 o'clock, Jennifer arrived with the dress. Midnight blue silk, elegant and understated. Shoes that Lena could barely walk in. Jewelry that felt like chains. You look beautiful, Jennifer said quietly. Like you belong in that world. I don't. Tonight you do, for Christopher. By 6, Lena was dressed and terrified. Victoria had done her hair in an elegant updo, makeup subtle but polished. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. A knock on the door. Marcus, in a tailored suit, earpiece visible. "Time to go," he said. "Mr. Vale is waiting." Lena followed him to the main floor where a team of security personnel moved with practiced efficiency. Dominic stood in the center, dressed in a black tuxedo that made him look even more dangerous than usual. But it was Christopher who took her breath away. The baby wore a tiny designer outfit, soft blue that matched his eyes, custom made for a 3-week-old heir. He was awake, looking around with curious awareness, completely unaware of the danger he was walking into. "Ready?" Dominic asked. "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He gestured to Marcus. "Formation Alpha. Let's go." They descended to the garage where 3 identical black SUVs waited. Security teams piled in with military precision. Dominic carried Christopher himself, protective and possessive. Lena climbed into the center vehicle, flanked by guards. Dominic sat across from her, Christopher in his arms, expression unreadable. "Whatever happens tonight," he said as they pulled into traffic, "you stay with Christopher. Don't leave his side. Don't talk to anyone you don't have to. And if Marcus tells you to move, you move. Understand?" "Yes." "I'm serious, Lena. These people, they smile and shake hands and drink champagne, but they're predators. All of them, looking for any weakness they can exploit." "I understand." "Do you?" Dominic leaned forward. "Because if something happens, if this goes wrong, I need to know you'll protect him." "With my life." The words came out before she could think about them. But looking at Christopher's tiny face, Lena knew they were true. This baby who wasn't hers, this child of violence and empire, she'd die before letting anyone hurt him. Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "That's what I needed to hear." The convoy moved through Seattle's streets, heading toward the waterfront hotel, where Seattle's elite gathered to pretend they didn't know exactly who Dominic Vale was and what he did. Lena looked out the window at the city lights and wondered if she'd live to see morning. The baby in Dominic's arms made a small sound, content, trusting, completely unaware that his father was bringing him into a den of wolves. And Lena Hart, the grieving mother who'd come here desperate and empty, realized she'd found something worth fighting for, even if it killed her. The Cascade Grand Hotel rose above Elliott Bay like a monument to wealth and power. Glass and steel caught the setting sun, turning the building into something that belonged in a different world entirely. Valets in crisp uniforms directed luxury cars through the circular drive, while photographers clustered behind velvet ropes, cameras ready for Seattle's elite. Lena's hands trembled in her lap as their convoy approached. 3 identical SUVs. Impossible to tell which one carried Dominic Vale and his heir. "Security protocol," Marcus had explained. "Make them guess. Make them work for any opportunity." "Breathe," Dominic said quietly. Christopher slept against his chest, tiny fist curled against expensive fabric. "You look like you're heading to an execution. Aren't I?" "Not tonight. Tonight, you're part of my family, protected, untouchable." His gray eyes met hers. "But you need to look like you believe that. I'm not an actress. You don't have to be. Just stay calm. Stay close to Christopher. Let me handle everything else." The SUVs stopped at a side entrance, away from the cameras and crowds. Marcus appeared at the door, scanning the area with practiced efficiency before opening it. "We're clear. Move fast." They exited in a choreographed rush. Security formed a wall of bodies around them as they swept through a private entrance into the hotel's service corridor. No photographers here, no crowds, just concrete and fluorescent lights and the distant sound of a string quartet warming up somewhere above. A service elevator whisked them to the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, the world transformed. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, walls covered in art that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. The charity gala was in full swing beyond the double doors ahead, the murmur of conversation and clinking glasses spilling into the hallway. Victoria materialized from somewhere, clipboard in hand, looking like she'd coordinated military invasions with less stress. "The suite is ready," she said to Dominic. "Private, secure, right off the main ballroom. Christopher can rest there if needed. I've stationed 2 guards inside, 3 in the hallway." "Good. Lena, you'll stay in the suite unless Christopher needs to be in the ballroom. If he does, you're right beside Dominic. Don't separate for any reason." "What if he needs to feed?" "Then you take him to the suite and feed him there. Alone, with the door locked and guards outside." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "You'll be fine. Just remember, your staff, invisible. That's your armor tonight." Invisible. Lena could work with that. She'd spent 4 months trying to disappear anyway. Dominic led them down the hallway to a door marked Presidential Suite C. Inside, the space was elegant efficiency. A sitting area, a bedroom beyond, furniture that cost more than cars. A bassinet waited near the window, already outfitted with monitors and equipment. "This is your base," Marcus said. "You leave this room, you tell me first. Someone knocks, you don't answer. You hear anything unusual, you press this." He handed her a small device that looked like a car key fob. "One button, press it, and I'm here in 30 seconds with a full security team." Lena took the device with shaking hands. "This feels like too much." "It's not enough," Dominic said. "Marcus, final positions." The security chief nodded and spoke into his earpiece. Around them, Lena could sense the invisible network of guards and protocols sliding into place. Dominic stood in the center of it all, holding his sleeping son, looking like a king preparing for battle. "I need to make an appearance," he said. "Show Christopher to the right people. Remind everyone why it's a bad idea to cross me." "How long will you be gone?" "An hour, maybe less." He looked at the baby in his arms, something vulnerable flickering across his face. He just ate. He should sleep through most of it. "And if he doesn't?" "Then you come get me. Immediately." Dominic crossed to her, gently transferring Christopher into her arms. The baby stirred but didn't wake, already accustomed to the exchange between the 2 people who kept him alive. "Be careful," Lena said quietly. Dominic's expression flickered with something like surprise. "You're worried about me." "You're his father. Of course I'm worried." "I've been doing this a long time, Lena. I know how to handle predators in expensive suits." "I'm sure you do. I'm still worried." For a moment, Dominic looked like he might say something else. Then he nodded and turned to Marcus. "Let's go." They left in a formation that spoke of years of practice. The door closed with a solid click. Lena heard the guards take position outside, heard Marcus give quiet orders, heard the world beyond become muffled and distant. She was alone with Christopher in a luxury suite, surrounded by guards, in a building full of people who might want them dead. The baby slept peacefully through all of it. Lena settled into a chair by the window, holding Christopher close, watching the city lights spread below them like scattered diamonds. Somewhere in this building, Dominic was playing a game she didn't understand, moving pieces on a board she couldn't see, protecting a kingdom built on violence and fear, and she was part of it now, whether she wanted to be or not. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Christopher stirred occasionally but remained asleep, his breathing steady and strong. So different from the dying infant she'd first held a week ago, so much stronger. A knock on the door made her jump. "Miss Hart?" A woman's voice, professional and calm. "It's Victoria. I have some water for you." Lena looked at the panic button Marcus had given her. Should she use it? But it was just Victoria, Dominic's event coordinator, someone who'd been nothing but helpful. She opened the door to find Victoria holding a tray with water and fruit. Behind her, 2 guards watched the hallway with focused attention. "Thought you might need something," Victoria said, slipping inside. "How's our little prince?" "Sleeping." "Good. Dominic's making his rounds, creating quite the impression." Victoria set the tray down, then paused. "You should know, Victor Constantine is here." Lena's arms tightened around Christopher. "The Russian?" "The very same. He asked about the baby, very pointed questions about Christopher's health, about his care, about who's been helping." Victoria's expression was carefully neutral. "Dominic handled it well, but Victor's curious. That's dangerous." "What does he want?" What everyone wants in this world. Power, territory, advantage. Victoria moved to the window, looking out at the city. Dominic built his empire by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. But empires have weaknesses. Christopher is his, and now, by extension, so are you. I'm nobody. You're the woman keeping his heir alive. In this world, that makes you somebody whether you like it or not. Victoria turned back to her. Be careful, Lena. Not everyone here tonight is what they seem. Before Lena could respond, Victoria's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, and headed for the door. Stay inside. Don't open this door for anyone except Dominic or Marcus. She left in a rush. The guards outside shifted position. Something had changed in the air, a tension that made Lena's skin prickle. Christopher woke with a small cry. Not urgent, just awareness returning. Lena rocked him gently, murmuring reassurances she didn't quite believe herself. Another knock, harder this time. Miss Hart, it's Marcus. Open the door, now. The urgency in his voice made her move. She opened the door to find Marcus flanked by 4 guards, all of them with hands near weapons that were definitely concealed somewhere on their bodies. What's wrong? Dominic needs you in the ballroom. Bring Christopher. But you said, plans changed. Victor Constantine is making a scene, implying Christopher isn't healthy, that Dominic's hiding something. We need to shut that down immediately. Marcus was already moving, expecting her to follow. Stay close to me. Don't speak to anyone. If something happens, you get Christopher to the ground and cover him. Understand? Lena's heart hammered. Yes. They moved through the hallway in tight formation, guards surrounding her and Christopher like a human shield. The sound of the gala grew louder. Voices, music, the clink of champagne glasses. Through the double doors, Lena caught glimpses of Seattle's elite in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, playing at civilization while predators circled. Marcus led her through a side entrance into the ballroom proper. The space was magnificent, soaring ceilings, massive chandeliers, walls of windows overlooking the bay. Hundreds of people mingled and networked and pretended this was just another charity event. But Lena could feel the undercurrents, could see the way certain groups clustered together, the way eyes tracked movement, the way some men carried themselves with the coiled readiness of violence barely restrained. Dominic stood near the center of the room, surrounded by a group of well-dressed men and women. Even from a distance, Lena could see the tension in his shoulders, the cold precision in his expression. This was Dominic Vale in his element, dangerous and controlled and absolutely in command. Next to him stood a man who could only be Victor Constantine, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of polished charm that concealed a snake's heart. He was speaking loudly enough for nearby conversations to pause and listen. I'm only saying what everyone's thinking, Dominic. Your son's been ill, very ill from what I hear. And now suddenly he's better? Forgive me for being skeptical. There's nothing to be skeptical about, Victor. Christopher had a rough start, like many premature infants. He's thriving now. So you say, but we haven't seen him, not once since his birth. Some might wonder if there even is a healthy heir to your empire. The implication hung in the air like poison. Dominic's expression went arctic. Are you calling me a liar? I'm saying I'd like to see proof. Victor's smile was all teeth. If the child is as healthy as you claim, why hide him? That's when Marcus guided Lena forward, cutting through the crowd with practiced efficiency. People parted automatically, sensing something important was happening. Lena held Christopher close, the baby awake now and looking around with curious eyes. The moment Dominic saw them, his expression shifted, still cold, still controlled, but with something protective underneath. He held out his arms and Lena crossed to him, transferring Christopher with the ease of repetition. The room went silent. Dominic held his son with casual confidence, one hand supporting the baby's head, the other arm cradling his small body. Christopher looked around at the faces watching him, completely unafraid, those gray eyes so like his father's, taking in everything. Here's your proof, Victor, Dominic's voice carried across the silent ballroom. My son, Christopher Vale, healthy, strong, and very much alive. Victor's smile faltered. Around them, people leaned in, trying to get a better look at the infant who represented the future of Dominic's empire. Cameras flashed, society photographers who'd been invited specifically for this moment. He's beautiful, someone murmured. a woman in diamonds, genuine warmth in her voice. Congratulations, Dominic. Others echoed the sentiment. The moment transformed from confrontation to celebration, exactly as Dominic had planned. He turned Victor's challenge into an opportunity to show strength, family, continuity. But Victor wasn't finished. His eyes found Lena, assessed her with the cold calculation of a man who missed nothing. "And who is this?" he asked. "I don't believe we've met." "A private nurse," Dominic said before Lena could speak. "Christopher requires specialized care." "How fortunate you found someone so dedicated." Victor's tone suggested he knew there was more to the story. "I don't recall seeing her at any of our previous gatherings." "She's not part of our world, Victor. She's medical staff. Nothing more." "Of course." Victor's smile never reached his eyes. "Still, it's unusual. A private nurse living in your home, caring for your son around the clock, one might think she's more than staff." The insinuation was clear. Dominic's expression went deadly. "One might think you're overstepping, Victor, asking questions that aren't your business. Everything that affects the balance of power in Seattle is my business." "Is that a threat?" "It's an observation." Victor glanced at Christopher again. "Beautiful child. It would be a shame if anything happened to him." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus and the other guards tensed, hands moving subtly toward weapons. Around them, people began backing away, sensing violence about to erupt. Dominic handed Christopher back to Lena with careful precision. Then he stepped into Victor's space, close enough that his next words were for the Russian alone. But in the silence, everyone heard them anyway. "If you ever threaten my family again, if you even think about my son in a way I don't like, I will end you. Not your organization, not your territory. You, personally. I will make it slow and painful and public, and everyone in this room will know exactly what happens when you cross that line. Are we clear?" Victor's charm cracked. Beneath it, Lena saw the same cold calculation that lived in Dominic's eyes. Two predators measuring each other, deciding whether tonight was the night to strike. "Crystal," Victor said finally, "but Dominic, that child makes you vulnerable. Everyone here knows it, and vulnerability in our world is a death sentence waiting to happen." "Then let them try." Dominic's voice was silk over steel. "And learn why I've held this city for 20 years, while better men than them have fallen." He turned away, dismissing Victor like he was nothing, crossed back to Lena and reclaimed his son, holding Christopher with possessive protection. Around them, conversation slowly resumed, but the tension remained, everyone aware they'd just witnessed a declaration of war disguised as conversation. "We're leaving," Dominic said quietly to Marcus. "Now." They moved toward the exit in tight formation. But before they could reach the doors, another man stepped into their path. Chinese, early 50s, with an expression of polite curiosity that didn't quite hide the intelligence underneath. "Dominic." "A moment?" "Joe." Dominic's tone was neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here." "The charity supports important causes. I thought I'd make an appearance." Joe's eyes found Christopher. "I heard about your son's illness. I'm glad to see he's recovered." Unlike Victor's challenge, Joe's words carried genuine warmth, but Dominic remained wary. "Thank you. Children are precious. They deserve protection from the ugliness of our world." Joe's expression turned serious. "I wanted you to know, whatever Victor is planning, my organization wants no part of it. We maintain our neutrality." "I appreciate that." "Do you?" Joe stepped closer, voice dropping. "Because neutrality only lasts as long as the status quo. If Victor makes a move, if he disrupts the balance we've all maintained, everyone will have to choose sides. I'd prefer not to be forced into that position." "Then make sure Victor understands the consequences of disrupting that balance." "I'm not his keeper, Dominic. Neither are you." Joe glanced at Lena, at Christopher, then back to Dominic. "But I will say this. A man fighting for his family is the most dangerous kind of enemy. Victor would be wise to remember that." He stepped aside, allowing them passage. Dominic nodded once, acknowledgement, if not quite gratitude, and continued toward the exit. They made it to the hallway before Christopher started crying. Not the weak, dying cries from a week ago, but strong, healthy, hungry cries. Lena knew that sound intimately now. He needs to feed, she said. Dominic looked torn between the security of movement and his son's needs. Marcus made the decision for him. Presidential suite, 5 minutes. They reversed course, moving back through the building's private corridors to the suite they'd left. Guards swept the room before allowing them entry, checking corners and windows with professional paranoia. Finally alone, or as alone as they could be with guards outside, Lena settled into the chair and prepared to feed Christopher. Dominic stood by the window, looking out at the city, tension radiating from every line of his body. That was a mistake, he said quietly. Bringing him here, exposing him. You didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. I chose wrong. You shut down Victor's challenge. You showed everyone Christopher is strong. That's what you wanted. What I wanted was to keep him safe. Instead, I painted a target on both of you. Dominic turned from the window, and in the dim light, he looked older, tired. Victor's right about one thing. Christopher makes me vulnerable. And in this world, vulnerability gets people killed. Christopher latched on, feeding with the desperate hunger of an infant going through a growth spurt. Lena held him close, hyper-aware of Dominic watching them. So what do we do? She asked. We adapt, increase security, limit exposure, wait for Victor to make his move. You think he will? I know he will. Tonight was a test. He wanted to see how I'd react, how protective I'd be, what weaknesses he could exploit. Dominic's expression went cold. He found what he was looking for. Me. You and Christopher both. The two things I can't afford to lose. The admission hung between them. Lena looked up at this man who'd become the center of her world in the span of a week. This crime lord who killed people and built empires on fear, who was also a father desperate to protect his son. Then we make sure he doesn't take us, she said quietly. You say that like it's simple. It is simple. You keep us alive, and I keep Christopher healthy. Everything else is just details. Dominic almost smiled. Almost. You're either very brave or very naive. Maybe both. Christopher finished feeding and immediately fell asleep, content and warm. Lena held him a moment longer, then carefully placed him in the portable bassinet Marcus had brought. The baby didn't stir, already so much stronger than he'd been, already fighting his way toward a future that would be complicated and dangerous and entirely his own. We should go, Dominic said. Get back to the building before someone decides tonight's the night to test our security. They left the suite surrounded by guards, moved through the hotel's service areas with practiced efficiency, and emerged into the parking garage where their convoy waited. The ride back was silent, tension thick enough to cut. Lena watched the city pass outside the window and tried not to think about Victor Constantine's smile or the threat hidden in Joe's warning or the fact that she'd somehow become essential to a world she didn't understand. The building appeared ahead, that obsidian tower cutting into the night sky, fortress and prison both. They swept into the underground garage, through security checkpoints, into elevators that whisked them back to Dominic's private floor. Only when they were inside, when the doors were locked and guards positioned and Christopher safe in his nursery, did Dominic finally let his control slip. He poured scotch with shaking hands, drained it in one swallow, poured another. That was too close, he said. Too public, too exposed. But we're safe now. For now, until Victor decides his next move. Dominic sat heavily in a chair, exhaustion finally showing. I've been doing this for 20 years, building power, eliminating threats, maintaining control, and one tiny baby brings it all crashing down. That's not fair to him. I know, but it's true. He looked at her. You asked what we do now. The truth is, I don't know. I can increase security, tighten protocols, prepare for war, but I can't change the fundamental reality. Christopher is my weakness, and everyone knows it now. Lena moved to the nursery doorway, looking at the sleeping infant who'd caused such chaos. He's not a weakness. He's what you're fighting for. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. A weakness is something that breaks you. Christopher makes you stronger because you have a reason to keep fighting. She turned back to Dominic. Victor sees a vulnerability to exploit. But what he doesn't see is that you'll do anything to protect your son. That makes you more dangerous, not less. Dominic studied her for a long moment. When did you become so wise? When I lost everything and learned that the only thing that matters is what you choose to fight for. They sat in silence, two broken people brought together by a child who needed them both. Outside, Seattle glowed against the darkness. Inside, Christopher slept peacefully, unaware of the storms gathering around him. Lena's phone buzzed. Not her old phone, the new one Marcus had given her, programmed with only essential contacts. She checked it, frowned at the message. It's Sophia. She wants to know Christopher's feeding schedule for tomorrow. Something about adjusting his nutrition plan. Tell her every 3 hours, same as always. Lena typed the response, then hesitated. She also says we should start thinking about introducing formula. In another week, maybe less, he might not need me anymore. The word should have been a relief. Should have meant freedom, an exit from this dangerous world. Instead, Lena felt something twist in her chest. Loss, maybe. Or fear of going back to the emptiness that had defined her life before Christopher. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Dominic said. For now, he needs you. That's all that matters. But Lena heard what he didn't say. And I need you too. Need someone he could trust with the most precious thing in his life. Need someone who understood that love and protection could coexist with violence and fear. She returned to the suite Jennifer had prepared for her, exhausted but too wired to sleep. The midnight blue dress hung in the closet like a reminder of the world she'd entered. The city sparkled below her window. And somewhere in the building, Christopher slept surrounded by guards and monitors and all the protection Dominic's empire could provide. It wasn't enough. Lena knew that instinctively. Victor Constantine hadn't made his move yet. Joe's neutrality wouldn't last forever. And there were other players in this game. The Italians Dominic had mentioned, other rivals circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The only question was when, and whether Lena would survive to see Christopher grow strong enough to face his father's world on his own terms. She finally slept near dawn, dreams filled with gray eyes and desperate cries, and the weight of a child who wasn't hers, but somehow had become her entire world anyway. When her phone rang 3 hours later with Christopher's hungry cry transmitted through monitors, Lena was already moving, already accepting that this was her life now, for better or worse. She just hoped she'd live long enough to see how it ended. 3 days after the gala, the first warning came in the form of a dead rat left at the building's service entrance. Marcus brought Dominic the security footage personally, his expression grim as stone. Lena was in the nursery with Christopher when she heard raised voices from Dominic's office down the hall. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was unmistakable, controlled fury barely held in check. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her usual composure cracked around the edges. "How is he?" "Christopher? He's perfect, getting stronger every day." Lena looked up from the baby. "What's happening?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Jennifer?" The older woman sighed, crossing to the window. "Someone left a message, the kind of message that means things are escalating." "Victor?" "We don't know for certain. Could be the Russians, could be the Italians, could be someone new deciding to test Dominic's defenses." Jennifer turned back to her. "Either way, security's being doubled. No one comes in or out without full clearance. Dominic wants you and Christopher to stay on this floor until further notice." "We're prisoners now?" "You're protected. There's a difference." Lena looked down at Christopher, who was making happy sounds while trying to grab his own feet. 4 weeks old now, gaining weight daily, his gray eyes bright with awareness. So different from the dying infant she'd first held. "How long?" she asked quietly. "As long as it takes." Jennifer's voice softened. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." "I didn't sign up for anything. I just wanted to help." "And you have. That baby's alive because of you, but Lena..." Jennifer hesitated, choosing words carefully. "You need to understand what's coming. Dominic's built his empire on the principle that weakness gets punished. Now he has a weakness everyone can see. His enemies won't just threaten, they'll act. And when they do, it won't be subtle." The warning settled in Lena's stomach like ice. "What should I do?" "Exactly what you've been doing. Keep Christopher safe, trust Dominic's security. And if something happens, if anything feels wrong, you use that panic button Marcus gave you. No hesitation. Jennifer left, and Lena was alone with Christopher and the weight of understanding that the game had changed. This wasn't just about a sick baby anymore. This was about power and territory, and men willing to hurt innocent people to prove points. She fed Christopher, held him close, and tried not to think about what escalating meant in a world run by people like Dominic Vale and Victor Constantine. That night, Dominic came to the nursery later than usual. He looked exhausted, his tailored suit slightly rumpled, his expression carrying the weight of decisions Lena couldn't begin to imagine. "He's asleep?" Dominic asked quietly. "Just went down. Fed 40 minutes ago. Should sleep for at least 3 hours." Dominic moved to the bassinet, looking down at his son with an expression that made Lena's chest ache. This was a man who'd built an empire on violence, who'd probably killed more people than she wanted to know about, reduced to helpless love for something tiny and fragile. "I need to tell you something," he said without looking up. "And I need you to listen without panicking." Lena's heart rate spiked. "Okay?" "Victor's making his move. Not directly, he's too smart for that. But he's been cutting into our supply routes, pressuring our connections, making it expensive for people to do business with me. It's economic warfare, designed to make me look weak, make others question whether I can still protect my interests." "Can you?" "Yes, but it takes resources, time, attention that I'd rather be spending here with Christopher." Dominic finally looked at her. "I need to leave Seattle for a few days. Handle some things personally that can't be delegated." "What, you're leaving us?" "I'm leaving you in the most secure location in the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by the best security team money can buy, with Marcus in direct command." His voice was firm. "You'll be safer than you've ever been." "When?" "Tomorrow. I'll be gone 3 days, maybe 4. Sophia will handle any medical issues. Jennifer will manage the household. Marcus will coordinate security. You just need to do what you've been doing. Keep Christopher healthy." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to say that this felt like abandonment, like he was running toward danger and leaving them vulnerable. But she saw the tension in Dominic's shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes, and understood this wasn't a choice he wanted to make. "Where are you going?" "Better you don't know. Plausible deniability if anyone asks questions." "Will you be safe?" Dominic's smile was cold. "Safety's relative in my world, but I'll be careful. I have too much to come back to." He bent over the bassinet, placing a gentle hand on Christopher's chest. The baby stirred but didn't wake, accustomed to his father's touch. Dominic stayed there for a long moment, memorizing something Lena couldn't name. "If something happens," he said quietly, "if I don't come back..." "Don't say that." "If I don't come back, Marcus has instructions. Money, documents, everything you'd need to disappear with Christopher. Somewhere safe, somewhere my enemies can't find you." "Dominic, I'm not planning to die, Lena, but in this business, plans don't always work out." He straightened, meeting her eyes. "Promise me you'll protect him, no matter what happens, no matter who tells you what or offers you what. Christopher comes first." "I promise." "Say it again." "I promise Christopher comes first, always." Dominic nodded, some tension leaving his frame. "Good. That's all I needed to hear." He left without another word, and Lena sat in the darkened nursery wondering if she'd just seen Dominic Vale for the last time. The next morning, he was gone before dawn. Lena woke to feed Christopher and found the building transformed. More guards at every checkpoint, cameras tracking every angle, Marcus moving through the space like a general coordinating a siege defense. "Mr. Vale left instructions," Marcus said when Lena brought Christopher to the main floor. "You're not to leave this building for any reason. All deliveries are being screened. No visitors without my personal approval. If you need anything at all, you ask me first." "How long will he be gone?" "As long as it takes." Marcus's expression was unreadable. "But between you and me, he'll move heaven and earth to get back here. That baby's the only thing in the world Dominic loves more than power." The days blurred together. Lena established a routine. Feed Christopher every 3 hours, sleep when possible, try not to stare at her phone waiting for updates that never came. Sophia visited daily to check Christopher's progress and seemed pleased with his development. Another week, maybe less, and we can start transitioning to formula, Sophia said on the second day. He's strong enough now, healthy enough. You've done an incredible job. The words should have been a relief. Instead, Lena felt something twist in her chest. Once Christopher didn't need her anymore, what was her purpose here? Would Dominic keep her around out of gratitude, or would she be gently moved along with a generous severance and instructions to forget everything she'd seen? On the third day, Jennifer brought lunch to Lena's suite personally. You look tired. I am tired and worried, and going slightly crazy from being trapped in one building. Welcome to Dominic's world. This is how everyone who matters to him lives, in gilded cages, protected and isolated. Jennifer set down the tray. Have you heard from him? No, have you? Marcus has, brief check-ins, nothing detailed, but he's alive and making progress. Progress toward what? Jennifer's expression went carefully neutral. Toward making sure Victor Constantine understands the consequences of threatening Dominic's family. That night, Lena woke to Christopher crying. Not the hungry cry she'd learned to recognize, but something else. Distress. Fear. She rushed to the nursery to find him tangled in his blanket, little face red from crying. Hey, it's okay. She lifted him, untangling the fabric, checking him over with hands that had become expert at reading his tiny body. No fever, no signs of illness. Just a baby who'd gotten scared and needed comfort. She held him close, rocking gently, murmuring reassurances. Christopher calmed slowly, his cries fading to whimpers, and then to silence. He looked up at her with those gray eyes, Dominic's eyes, and something in Lena's heart shifted. This wasn't just a job anymore. Wasn't just about keeping a stranger's baby alive. Somewhere in the past month, Christopher had become hers too. Not in the way her daughter had been hers, but in a new way she didn't have words for yet. A connection forged in desperation and maintained through routine and deepened by the simple act of being the person he needed most. Your daddy's coming back, she whispered. He promised, and I think he's the kind of man who keeps his promises when it matters. Christopher made a small sound, contentment maybe, and drifted back to sleep against her chest. On the fourth day, Marcus's phone rang at 3 a.m. Lena was awake, had been for an hour, unable to sleep through the anxiety that had become her constant companion. She heard Marcus's voice through the walls, sharp, urgent, professional. 5 minutes later, he knocked on her door. Get Christopher, we're moving to the safe room. Lena's blood went cold. What's happening? Possible breach attempt on the building's south entrance. Probably nothing, but we don't take chances. Marcus was already moving, speaking into his earpiece, coordinating responses. Bring him now. Don't stop for anything. Lena grabbed Christopher from the nursery, wrapping him in a blanket while he protested the sudden wake-up. Marcus led them through hallways she'd never seen before, through a hidden door behind a bookshelf, down a corridor lined with reinforced steel. The safe room was exactly what it sounded like. Concrete walls, filtered air, monitors showing every angle of the building. Jennifer was already there, along with Sophia and 3 other guards. A bassinet waited in the corner, already equipped with everything Christopher might need. What's going on? Lena asked again. Marcus was watching the monitors with focused intensity. Unknown vehicle approached the service entrance. 2 occupants, no ID, refused to leave when challenged. Could be nothing. Could be a probe to test our response time. On the screens, Lena could see guards moving through the building with military precision. The unknown vehicle sat at the entrance, headlights cutting through darkness. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the vehicle reversed and drove away. Marcus exhaled slowly. Stand down, but maintain elevated alert. Was that Victor? Lena's voice shook. Don't know. Could be Victor's people. Could be the Italians. Could be someone completely different. Marcus turned to her. But it proves what we already knew. People are watching, testing, looking for openings. They stayed in the safe room for another hour before Marcus declared it safe to return to the main floor. Christopher had fallen back asleep, unaware of the drama around him. Lena held him close, heart still racing, understanding viscerally what Jennifer had meant about gilded cages. Dawn broke gray and cold. Lena stood at her window, watching the city wake up, wondering where Dominic was and whether he was safe. Wondering if this was her life now, endless waiting, constant fear, moments of terror, punctuated by routine. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? It's me, Dominic's voice, rougher than usual. I'm coming home. 6 hours, maybe less. Is Christopher okay? He's perfect, healthy, strong, missing you. A pause. And you? Are you okay? We had a scare last night. Possible breach attempt. Marcus moved us to the safe room. She heard Dominic curse softly. I should have been there. You're handling what needs handling. We're fine. Marcus has everything under control. Still, I don't like being away when... He stopped. 6 hours. Tell Marcus to prepare for a full security briefing when I arrive. And Lena? Yes? Thank you. For keeping him safe. For staying when this got complicated and dangerous. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Neither is being a crime lord's target, but here we are. Dominic actually laughed. A short, surprised sound. Here we are. I'll see you soon. He hung up, and Lena felt something loosen in her chest. He was coming back. Whatever he'd gone to handle, he'd survived it. They'd have another day, another week, another chance to figure out how to keep Christopher safe in a world determined to use him as leverage. 6 hours later, precisely on schedule, the building's security monitors showed Dominic's convoy approaching. Lena watched from the nursery window as 3 black SUVs swept into the underground garage, as guards emerged in formation, as Dominic himself finally appeared, alive, whole, moving with the same controlled power he always carried. She found herself holding Christopher tighter, relief flooding through her. 20 minutes later, Dominic entered the nursery. He looked like he hadn't slept, his suit rumpled from travel, but his eyes went immediately to his son. Lena stood, offering Christopher without a word. Dominic took him with gentle reverence, holding his son close, breathing in that baby smell like it was oxygen. Christopher woke, looked at his father, and smiled. Actually smiled, one of those early expressions that might have been gas but felt like recognition. He missed you, Lena said quietly. I missed him. Dominic's voice was rough. Both of you. This whole place felt wrong without... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Without what? Without purpose. I was handling business, securing territory, making people understand consequences. But the whole time, all I could think about was getting back here. To him, to it. He looked at her. To both of you. The admission hung between them. Lena didn't know what to do with it, how to process that she'd somehow become essential to Dominic Vale's world beyond just being Christopher's wet nurse. Did you handle it? She asked instead. Whatever you went to do? Yes. Victor won't be testing our borders again anytime soon. The economic warfare stops now, or he finds out exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine. Did you? Lena hesitated. Did anyone get hurt? Not anyone who didn't deserve it. Dominic's expression went cold. I'm not a good man, Lena. I've never pretended to be. What I did this week, what I'll continue doing to keep Christopher safe, it's not pretty, it's not noble, it's necessary. I'm not judging. Aren't you? No, because I've seen what you're protecting. I've held him every 3 hours for a month. I know what's at stake. Lena met his eyes. You do what you have to do. I'll do what I have to do. Together we keep him alive. Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then, surprising them both, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so gentle it seemed impossible from hands that had probably killed this week. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. I'm terrified every single day. That's what makes you strong. Fear that doesn't stop you from doing what's necessary. He looked back at Christopher. I need to brief Marcus. Update security protocols based on what I learned this week. But later, will you have dinner with me? Just us and Christopher. No guards, no business, just a family dinner? If you want to call it that. Lena's heart did something complicated in her chest. I'd like that. Dominic nodded and left, taking Christopher with him to his office. Lena heard them through the wall, Dominic's deep voice talking quietly to his son, explaining things a 4-week-old couldn't possibly understand, but seemed to listen to anyway. That evening, Jennifer set up dinner in Dominic's private dining room. Not the formal space where he entertained business associates, but a smaller room with views of the city and furniture that looked actually lived in. The table was set for two, with Christopher's bassinet nearby. Dominic had changed from his travel-worn suit to casual clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater that made his gray eyes even more striking. He looked younger like this, less like a crime lord and more like just a father trying to figure out his new reality. "I don't usually do this," he said as they sat down. "Casual dinners, personal conversations. My life's been business and strategy for so long, I forgot how to just exist." Elena didn't change that? She tried. Made me slow down sometimes. Remember there was more to life than territory and power. Dominic poured wine for both of them. But even with her, there was always this wall. Things I couldn't share. Decisions I couldn't explain. She knew what I was, but she didn't know everything I did. "Do you want to tell me?" "No. But I think you should know anyway. Understand exactly who you're trusting with my son." Dominic took a drink, gathering words. "I built this empire from nothing. My father was nobody. A low-level enforcer for the Italian family, died when I was 15 in a territorial dispute. I swore I'd never be that powerless again. Never let someone else control my fate. So you became the one in control. I became the one people feared. There's a difference. Control is an illusion. Fear is real." He looked at Christopher. "But fear doesn't keep you warm at night. Doesn't love you back." Elena understood that. She saw past the empire to the man underneath, and she loved him anyway. "You miss her. Every day. Every time I look at Christopher and see her eyes, her expressions, her sweetness trying to push through my darkness." Dominic's voice went rough. "She made me better. And when she died, I thought that part of me died too. But it didn't. No, because of him. Because he needed me to be more than just a crime lord protecting territory. He needed a father." Dominic met Lena's eyes. "And he needed you. Someone who could give him what I couldn't. What no amount of money or power could provide." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, Christopher sleeping peacefully nearby. Outside, the city glowed against darkness. Inside, something shifted. Understanding, maybe. Or acceptance that they were both broken people trying to protect something precious. "Sophia says another week, and he can start formula," Lena said quietly. "He won't need me anymore." "What will you do when that happens?" "I don't know. I haven't thought past keeping him alive." "You could stay." The words came out carefully, like Dominic was testing unknown ground. Not as his wet nurse, as something else, someone who's part of his life, part of our life. "As what? An employee? A friend? I don't even know what we are to each other." "Neither do I. But I know I trust you with the most important thing in my world. I know you've seen me at my weakest and didn't run. I know Christopher lights up when he sees you, and Dominic stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "I don't want you to leave." Lena's throat tightened. "This is insane. A month ago I was homeless and broken. Now I'm having dinner with a crime lord talking about staying in his life permanently?" "Yes." "That's your whole answer? Just yes?" "What else is there to say? Nothing about this situation is normal. But it works. You and me and Christopher, we work. Why walk away from that?" "Because it's dangerous. Because people like Victor Constantine leave dead rats as warnings. Because your world kills people. My world also protects people. The ones who matter. The ones I claim as mine." Dominic leaned forward. "Stay, Lena. Not because you have to. Not because Christopher needs you, but because you want to. Because maybe, possibly, you're starting to build something here that matters." Before Lena could answer, alarm shrieked through the building. Marcus's voice came over the intercom, sharp with controlled urgency. "Lockdown protocol. Multiple breach attempts. All entrances. This is not a drill." Dominic was moving before Marcus finished speaking, scooping Christopher from the bassinet while guards poured into the room. "Safe room. Now." They ran through the hidden corridors again, but this time felt different. This time, Lena could hear actual gunfire echoing through the building's lower floors. This time, the monitors in the safe room showed armed men in tactical gear forcing their way through entrances that should have been impenetrable. "How many?" Dominic demanded, holding Christopher close. Marcus checked his screens grimly. 12 confirmed. Maybe more. Professional team, military-grade equipment. This isn't a probe, Dom. This is an assault. Victor? Who else would be stupid enough? Dominic's expression went absolutely arctic. He handed Christopher to Lena, gentle, despite the chaos around them. "Keep him safe. Whatever happens, you keep him safe." "Where are you going?" "To remind Victor Constantine why you don't threaten Dominic Vale's family." He grabbed a weapon from the locked cabinet Marcus opened, checked it with practiced efficiency, and headed for the door. Lena's hand shot out, grabbed his arm. "Don't go. Stay here with us. Let your guards handle it." "If I stay, they'll keep pushing, keep testing. This ends tonight." He looked at her with eyes that had gone cold and predatory. "I told you I'm not a good man. Now you get to see exactly what that means." He left, Marcus and half the guards following. The safe room door sealed behind them with a hiss of pressurized air. On the monitors, Lena watched Dominic move through his building like death itself, watched him engage the intruders with precision that spoke of decades of violence. She held Christopher close, covering his ears against the sounds of gunfire penetrating even the safe room's walls, and understood with perfect clarity that the life she'd stumbled into was about to get much, much worse. The gunfire lasted 17 minutes. Lena counted every second while Christopher screamed in her arms, terrified by sounds his infant brain couldn't process but instinctively feared. Jennifer and Sophia huddled nearby, their faces pale in the safe room's harsh fluorescent light. The remaining guards watched the monitors with professional intensity, hands on weapons, ready to become the last line of defense if the assault reached this far. On the screens, Lena watched Dominic move through his building like a force of nature. He wasn't reckless. Every movement was calculated, every shot precise. But there was something terrifying in his efficiency, in the cold determination with which he eliminated threats to his family. This was Dominic Vale without the tailored suits and careful control. This was the man who'd built an empire on fear and violence, and Lena finally understood why people spoke his name in whispers. "South entrance is clear," one of the guards reported, voice crackling through the radio. 4 hostiles down, 2 retreating. "West entrance secure, 3 hostiles neutralized. Main lobby, Mr. Vale has the last of them pinned. They're trying to surrender." Lena's breath caught. On the monitor, she could see Dominic standing over 2 men in tactical gear, both with their hands raised, weapons discarded. Marcus was beside him, along with 4 other guards. The intruders were saying something, pleading, maybe, but Dominic's expression was carved from ice. He raised his weapon. "No," Lena whispered. The guards beside her shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. This was their world. Swift justice delivered without mercy or hesitation. But then Dominic lowered the gun, spoke to Marcus. The guards moved in, zip-tying the survivors' hands, dragging them toward a service elevator Lena had never seen before. "It's over," Jennifer breathed. "He's letting them live." "Why?" Sophia asked. "That's not like him." "Because he needs them to deliver a message." Jennifer's expression was grim. "Victor needs to know exactly what happens when you come for Dominic's family, and that the survivors are only alive because Dominic chose mercy this time." 30 minutes later, the all-clear sounded. The safe room door unsealed with a hiss. Lena emerged carrying Christopher, who'd finally cried himself into exhausted sleep against her shoulder. The building felt different now, scarred by violence, marked by the night's events in ways that would never fully fade. Dominic was in the main living area, stripped to his undershirt, blood on his hands that he was washing in the kitchen sink. Not his blood, Lena realized. He was uninjured, just methodically cleaning away evidence of what he'd done. He looked up when they entered, and his expression transformed. The cold killer vanished, replaced by a father desperate to see his son safe. "Is he hurt?" "Just scared." "All that noise?" Lena's voice broke. "Is it really over?" "For tonight." Dominic dried his hands and crossed to them, checking Christopher with gentle thoroughness, despite the baby being asleep. "Marcus is interrogating the survivors. We'll know who sent them within the hour, though I already know the answer." "Victor." "Victor." Dominic's voice went flat. He thought he could take Christopher. Use him as leverage to force me to give up territory, resources, control. He thought I'd choose my empire over my son. What will you do? What I should have done weeks ago. End this permanently. The words should have terrified Lena. Instead, holding Christopher's sleeping form, feeling the rapid beat of his tiny heart against her chest, she understood. This wasn't about violence for violence's sake. This was about a father protecting his child the only way he knew how. I need to put him down, she said quietly. He needs to sleep somewhere that doesn't smell like fear. Dominic led them to the nursery, which had somehow remained untouched by the assault. Here, everything was still soft colors and gentle lighting, a bubble of innocence in a building marked by gunfire. Lena placed Christopher in his bassinet, watching him settle into deeper sleep now that the world had gone quiet again. I'm sorry, Dominic said behind her. I brought this into your life, the danger, the violence, all of it. You didn't bring me anything. I walked into it myself. You came here desperate for work, not for this. No, but this is what I got, and I'm still here. Lena turned to face him. You asked me at dinner if I'd stay, if I'd build something here that matters. Then all hell broke loose before I could answer. You don't have to answer now, not after... Yes, I'm staying, if you still want me to. Dominic stared at her. You just watched me kill 4 people. You're standing in a building that was under siege 20 minutes ago, and you're saying yes? I'm saying I understand now. What you are, what this world requires, what it costs to keep Christopher safe. I'm saying I'd rather be here in the middle of it than anywhere else wondering if he's okay. Lena's voice steadied. I lost my daughter because I couldn't save her. But I can save him. I can be part of keeping him alive, keeping him safe, giving him a chance to grow up. That's worth more than safety. That's worth everything. Dominic crossed the space between them in 2 strides. For a moment, Lena thought he might kiss her. There was something in his eyes that suggested he wanted to. But instead, he pulled her into an embrace that spoke of gratitude and relief, and something neither of them was ready to name yet. Thank you, he whispered against her hair, for staying, for being brave enough to choose this life. Thank you for letting me. They stood there, 2 broken people holding each other while a baby slept nearby and a building full of guards cleaned up the aftermath of violence. Outside, Seattle glowed in the darkness. Inside, something fundamental had shifted, an acknowledgement that they were in this together, for better or worse. Marcus appeared in the doorway, tactful enough not to comment on their embrace. The survivors are talking. Victor sent them. Direct orders to extract Christopher and bring him to a secondary location. They were promised $500,000 each. Dominic released Lena, his expression going cold again. And they're terrified. They know what happens to people who fail Victor, and they know what you'll do to them for trying to take your son. They're begging for protection. Give it to them, on one condition. They deliver a message to Victor personally. Video recording, their faces visible, explaining exactly what happened tonight and what I promised them if they ever work for him again. He'll kill them for betraying him. That's their problem. They chose to come after my family. Now they live with the consequences. Dominic's voice was ice. But Marcus, make sure the message is very clear. Victor gets one chance to back down. One opportunity to acknowledge he overstepped and return to the status quo. If he refuses, you go to war. I end him, completely. No territory, no organization, no legacy. I erase Victor Constantine from existence and dare anyone else to test me. Marcus nodded and left. Dominic stood by the window looking out at his city, hands clenched into fists. Lena could see the rage simmering beneath his control, the fury of a man who'd almost lost everything that mattered. Will he back down? She asked quietly. I don't know. Victor's proud, ambitious. He spent months testing my boundaries, pushing to see how far he could go. Tonight proved he was willing to go all the way. Then what happens? Then I remind the entire Pacific Northwest why I've held this city for 20 years, why my empire has survived challenges from men better and smarter than Victor Constantine. Dominic turned to face her. It won't be pretty, Lena. It won't be quick, but it will be final. Over the next 2 days, the message was delivered. Lena watched from the security of the building as Dominic orchestrated his response with surgical precision. She didn't see the details, didn't want to know exactly what happened to Victor's operations, his people, his carefully built power structure. But she saw the results in Dominic's expression, in the way tension gradually left his shoulders, in Marcus's reports that grew more positive with each passing hour. Christopher, oblivious to the war being waged in his name, continued getting stronger. Sophia introduced formula gradually, mixing it with Lena's milk, preparing for the transition they'd known was coming. The baby took to it better than expected, his strong constitution handling the change with minimal fuss. "Another few days and he won't need you at all," Sophia said, making notes on her tablet. "Medically speaking, he's thriving, Lena. You did exactly what he needed." But Lena had already decided she wasn't going anywhere. Christopher might not need her to survive anymore, but he needed her in other ways. Someone to hold him when he was scared, to talk to him in quiet moments, to be a constant presence in a world that had already proven itself dangerous. And maybe, secretly, she needed him too. Needed the purpose he gave her, the reason to wake up, the feeling that she mattered to someone again. On the third day after the assault, Dominic called Lena to his office. She arrived to find him behind his desk, looking like he hadn't slept, but carrying an expression of grim satisfaction. "It's done," he said simply. "Victor's operations have been dismantled. His key people have either joined my organization or left the Northwest entirely. His territory is being absorbed, his resources redistributed. And Victor himself, do I want to know? Probably not, but he's alive if that's what you're asking. Alive and on a plane to Moscow with very clear instructions never to return. If he does, if he ever threatens my family again, there won't be mercy a second time. You let him live. I let him run. There's a difference. Death would have made him a martyr, someone his people could rally around. Exile makes him a failure, someone who overreached and paid for it." Dominic leaned back in his chair. "Besides, I gave you my word I'd end this. I didn't specify how." Lena moved to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Victor Constantine was learning the price of threatening Dominic Vale's family. Somewhere, other crime lords were taking notes, adjusting their calculations, deciding whether this crime lord with a newborn son was weak or more dangerous than ever. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we rebuild, strengthen security, establish new protocols, make it clear to everyone that what happened was an aberration that will never be repeated." Dominic stood, crossing to join her at the window. "And you and I need to have a conversation we've been avoiding." "About what?" "About what you are to this family, to Christopher, to me." He turned to face her fully. "When you came here, you were a stranger, desperate for work. Then you were Christopher's wet nurse, the woman keeping him alive. Then you became essential, someone I trusted with the most precious thing in my world. But now I don't know what I am." "Neither do I, but I know what I want you to be." Dominic's voice softened. "I want you to be part of our lives, permanently. Not as an employee, not as staff. As family." Lena's heart hammered. "Dominic, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not even asking you to love me, though I think—" He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "I'm asking you to stay. To be here for Christopher as he grows up. To be someone he can count on, someone who loves him, not because of what he represents, but because of who he is. And maybe, over time, we figure out what we are to each other too. You barely know me. I know you walked into my home when you had nothing. I know you risked your life to save my son when you could have walked away. I know you stayed through danger and violence and threats because you promised to protect him. That's more than knowing. That's understanding who you are at your core. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not strong enough for this world? You've already proven your strength. Every day, every choice, every moment you could have run but didn't." Dominic reached out, taking her hand gently. "I'm not asking for perfection, Lena. I'm asking for presence. For you to be here, to be part of this, to help me give Christopher something I never had. A family that chooses love over power." Tears burned in Lena's eyes. "Elena would have been better at this than me." "Elena was perfect, and she's gone. But you're here, and you're real, and Christopher needs you just as much as he needs me." Dominic's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I need you too. Not to replace Elena, no one could, but to be something new, something I didn't know I was missing until you showed up in the rain. I'm terrified. So am I. Of failing him, of failing you, of becoming my father, a man who loved violence more than his family. Dominic's voice roughened. But with you here, I think I can be better, be the father Christopher deserves, and the man Elena hoped I could become. Lena looked at their joined hands, at this crime lord who'd killed people 3 days ago, and was now asking her to build a family with him. It was insane, dangerous, completely illogical. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, I'll stay. I'll be part of this family, whatever that means. I'll help you give Christopher a life filled with more than just fear and power. She met his eyes. But Dominic, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll try. Try to be more than just the king of Seattle's underworld. Try to show Christopher that strength can come from love instead of fear. Try to be the man Elena saw in you. I promise. Though I'll probably fail sometimes. We'll both fail sometimes. That's what families do. They fail and forgive and keep trying anyway. Lena smiled through tears. My daughter taught me that. In the 2 months I had her, she taught me that love means showing up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Dominic pulled her close, and this time he did kiss her, gentle and searching, asking a question Lena answered by kissing him back. It wasn't fireworks or overwhelming passion. It was understanding and acceptance and the quiet beginning of something neither of them had expected but both desperately needed. When they pulled apart, Christopher's cry echoed from the nursery. Not distress, just hunger, announcing his needs with healthy infant lungs. I'll get him, Lena said. We'll get him, together. They walked to the nursery side by side, and Lena fed Christopher while Dominic watched with an expression that had transformed from the cold crime lord into something approaching peace. The baby ate well, already showing preference for the formula over Lena's milk, proof that Sophia's prediction was coming true. Soon he wouldn't need this at all, but he'd still need them. Need Lena's comfort and Dominic's protection and the family they were building from broken pieces. What will people say? Lena asked as Christopher finished eating. When word gets out that you've taken in your son's wet nurse as whatever I am now, let them say whatever they want. The people who matter will understand. The people who don't matter, their opinions are irrelevant. Dominic took Christopher, burping him with practiced ease. Besides, in our world, stranger arrangements than ours have worked. At least we're choosing this honestly, choosing each other because we want to, not because of political advantage or territorial gain. Just because of a dying baby and desperation? Just because of a dying baby who brought together two people who needed saving as much as he did. Over the following weeks, life found a new rhythm. Christopher continued thriving, transitioning fully to formula by the end of his 2nd month. Sophia was thrilled with his development, declaring him ahead of milestones and perfectly healthy. The assault had left its mark on the building. New security systems, additional guards, protocols that turned the place into even more of a fortress. But within that fortress, something softer was growing. Lena moved from the guest suite to rooms adjoining Dominic's, close enough to Christopher's nursery to hear him at night, but with her own space to retreat to when the intensity got overwhelming. Dominic courted her in his own way. Quiet dinners after Christopher slept, conversations that went deeper than strategy and survival, moments of unexpected tenderness that proved he was capable of more than just violence. She learned about his childhood, about the father who'd died too young and the mother who'd disappeared into addiction afterward, about building an empire from nothing because the alternative was being crushed by men who saw weakness in youth, about Elena and how she'd somehow seen past the monster to the man underneath. And she told him about her daughter, about the premature birth, the 2 months in NICU, the cancer diagnosis that had come too late, about holding her baby girl while she died, about the grief that had nearly destroyed her, about coming to his building that rainy night because she had nothing left to lose. I think our daughters would have been friends, Dominic said one evening, holding a sleeping Christopher. If they'd had the chance. Christopher will carry both their memories, Lena replied. He'll grow up knowing that love is worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for. Jennifer approved of the arrangement with a knowing smile, having apparently seen it coming from the start. Marcus remained professionally neutral, but seemed pleased to have someone else helping shoulder the burden of keeping Dominic from working himself to death. Sophia gave Lena a knowing look and promised to be available for any questions about Christopher's development. And Victoria, when she finally met Lena again at a small dinner party, pulled her aside and whispered, "You're good for him. I haven't seen Dominic this human in years." The underworld adjusted to the new reality. With Victor gone and his territory absorbed, Dominic's empire was stronger than ever, but the assault had sent a clear message: come for his family and face total annihilation. Other crime lords sent carefully worded congratulations on Christopher's health, peace offerings disguised as gifts, subtle acknowledgments that the balance of power had shifted. Joe visited personally 3 months after the assault, bearing an antique jade pendant for Christopher. "For protection," he said, placing it carefully in Lena's hands, and as acknowledgement that Dominic Vale's family is to be respected, not threatened. "Thank you," Lena said, surprised by the gift's weight. "You're brave," Joe told her quietly, while Dominic was showing his security team out. "Choosing this life, this family. Not many would." "I didn't have much choice." "We always have choices. You chose love over safety. That takes courage most people never find." Joe smiled slightly. "Dominic's lucky to have found you. Make sure he knows it." As the months passed, Christopher transformed from fragile infant to robust baby. He learned to track faces, to smile at Lena and Dominic, to laugh at the silly faces Jennifer made. His gray eyes stayed gray. Dominic's eyes. Elena's eyes. Proof of the genetic legacy he carried. On his 6-month birthday, Lena found Dominic in the nursery late at night, just watching Christopher sleep. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. "Just thinking. 6 months ago, I thought I'd lost him. Thought I'd have to bury my son the same year I buried his mother. And now," Dominic's voice caught, "now he's perfect, healthy and happy, and growing up in a home filled with more love than I ever thought I'd have again." Elena would be proud. "I hope so. I hope she knows that I'm trying to be the man she wanted me to be. That Christopher won't grow up like I did, surrounded by violence and fear with no light to balance the darkness. He won't. We won't let him." Lena moved to stand beside Dominic, both of them watching the sleeping baby. "But he will know where he comes from. He'll know his father's strength and his mother's love and the truth that sometimes family is built from the strangest circumstances. Will you tell him, someday, about how you came here desperate and saved his life when no one else could? Only if you tell him about the night you let a stranger near your dying son, because you were desperate enough to trust a miracle." Dominic smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "Deal." He turned to her, pulling her close, and Lena rested her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, the same rhythm that had driven him to build an empire and fight wars, and ultimately choose love over power when it mattered most. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it's complicated and messy and probably too fast, but I need you to know. You saved my son, you saved me, and I love you for it." Lena's eyes burned with tears. "I love you too. I didn't expect to. Didn't think I had room in my heart for anything but grief. But Christopher gave me purpose, and you gave me a reason to stay alive. So yes, I love you. Complicated and messy, and absolutely worth it." They stood there in the darkened nursery, holding each other while their son slept peacefully nearby. Outside, Seattle glowed against the night sky, a city that had witnessed their transformation from strangers to family, from broken individuals to something whole and new. The empire would continue. Territory would need defending. Rivals would need managing. The underworld would keep turning with its endless cycle of power and violence. But inside this fortress, inside these walls built to keep danger out and family in, love had found a way to grow. Christopher stirred, making small sounds in his sleep. Lena moved to his bassinet, checking him with practiced hands, while Dominic watched with an expression that had traveled light years from the cold crime lord she'd first met. They were parents now, partners, building something together that had nothing to do with empires and everything to do with the tiny life they'd fought so hard to protect. "Come to bed," Lena whispered. "He'll sleep for at least 4 more hours. We should actually sleep too." In a minute. I just want to watch him a little longer. Lena understood. Some miracles demanded witnesses, and Christopher's transformation from dying infant to thriving baby was exactly that. A miracle born of desperation and trust and two broken people finding purpose in keeping one small life safe. She left Dominic to his vigil and returned to their bedroom, climbing into sheets that still felt surreal in their luxury. Through the wall, she could hear Dominic's deep voice talking quietly to Christopher, telling their son stories about his mother, about the empire he'd inherit, about the woman who'd shown up in the rain and changed everything. Lena closed her eyes and let herself believe in happy endings, in second chances, and found families and love that grew from the strangest soil. Her daughter was gone. That grief would never fully heal. But Christopher was alive. Dominic was becoming the man Elena had believed in, and Lena had found something she'd thought impossible after loss. A reason to wake up every morning and choose joy over sorrow. The city outside continued its endless dance of light and shadow. The empire remained strong, built on fear but sustained by something far more powerful now, a father's love for his son and the woman who'd saved them both. And in the nursery, Dominic Vale, the untouchable king of Seattle's underworld, finally put his sleeping son back in the bassinet and whispered a promise into the darkness. "I'll give you the world, Christopher, but more than that, I'll give you a family, a home. Love that doesn't come with conditions or fear. Your mother started me on this path. Lena keeps me on it, and you're the reason I keep walking forward instead of falling back into darkness." He kissed his son's forehead gently and turned off the light, leaving just the soft glow of monitors to watch over Seattle's most protected heir. In the morning, they'd wake to feedings and schedules and the endless work of keeping an empire running. But tonight, they were just a family, imperfect and unconventional and absolutely real. And that was more than enough. That was everything.